I gotta say, I am pretty nervous this morning. Feels like I've never done this before. There's a lot going on. I always get this way when I feel like I'm introducing something new. I've been wrestling with some stuff has been happening, and so this is kind of a new thought, a new idea. It's nothing crazy, don't worry. But it's not the same stuff I've kind of been talking about, but in many ways it kind of ties all together. So I'll share a few different experiences that I had that kind of tied these things together. The first one is I was meeting with this guy, and we were talking, and he was talking about how his dad was getting sick and dying. My friend brought his children to see their grandfather. And their grandfather was asking the kids if their dad was a good dad. And now the son didn't understand, why is he asking my kids if I was a good dad? And it didn't really make, but it was a way for the grandfather to get affirmed that he was a good dad. Because even though he had made mistakes, and even though there were some times where he wasn't there because he had left the mom and that kind of thing, if his son grew up to be a good dad, then that affirmed him as a good dad. And a lot of times we talk about, and millions of dollars have been spent on books and on therapy for people who didn't get the affirmation from their father. And we're constantly, as little boys and little girls, trying to get our dad's affirmation. We want our dad to be proud of us. We want our dad to notice us. We want our dad to be present with us. But we never really think about a dad getting affirmation from the kid, right? And so the other thing that has been, it's been really, really bothering me is my son doesn't trust me. And I don't know why. Little things. We'll be in the pool swimming, and he runs down my mom's deck and jumps in the pool. He does all this crazy stuff, and I was just trying to get him to stand on my shoulders and then jump off my shoulders into the pool. I'm in the pool. I'm not on the deck. It's not like he's jumping off a high dive. But he's terrified. And there's a lot of other things that I try to get him to do, and he's afraid. And it makes me furious. And I don't know why. I couldn't figure out, why do I get so furious? And it's a realization that he doesn't trust me, which makes me feel like a bad father, which hits an insecurity that I'm not going to be a good father, or I'm not being a good father. Because a 5-year-old who I've never given any reason not to trust me, my kids have gotten everything. We love them, we're attentive to them, we pour into them, affectionate with them. They don't long for anything. Yet there's still like this innate thing in them that doesn't trust. And it hurts me, because it makes me feel like I'm not being a good father. And we think a lot about, as kids, needing the father's affirmation, but we don't think a lot about the father needing the kid's affirmation. And then I started thinking about God. God affirms me. I have all the affirmation I need from God. And if I ever wonder about God's affirmation of me, if I ever wonder about how God feels of me, all I got to do is look at the cross. That's the beautiful part of it. All the affirmation of our deserving and our worth is on the cross. But do we affirm the Father? Do we make him feel like a good father? Now, once again, I don't think we have to be careful to not what we call anthropomorphize God. We don't want to make God a human. God's not a human being, right? Jesus was a human being. Christ was a spirit. God is spirit. God is love. God's not human. So God doesn't have the emotions that we have. But the only way we can make sense of it is by using the language that we have, and our language makes God this humanized figure that has anger and jealousy and joy and all these other things that may not necessarily be true. But so we want to be careful not to do that too much. And I don't think that there's anything in God that makes him think that he's not a good father. He knows he's a good father, but he still likes to be told it. All right? And I've noticed this. I'm going to pick on Ann for a minute here because she does this all the time. She knows she's a good cook. She knows everything she makes is delicious, at least so far that I've had. And so there might be some things that, but she, once again, I don't bowl because I'm not good at bowling. There's something she doesn't make because she's not good at it, right? But yet every time she makes something, she goes, "Did you like it? Was it good?" You know full well it was good. Right? So even though we know we're good at stuff, we still like being told it. We still like hearing it. Right? Because we take pride in what we do. And we want to be recognized for what we do. God knows full well he's a good father. He knows full well what he did for us. He knows the price he paid for us. But does he still need to be affirmed as a good father? Because when we look at our world right now, we're not telling God he's a good father. Because we don't trust him. We're going to start in Exodus, and this is probably not the right passage to use for this, but this is the passage that kept coming to me this week. In Exodus 20, start at verse 4. He says, "You shall not make for yourself a carved image or any likeness of anything that is in heaven above, or that is in the earth beneath, or that is in the water under the earth. You shall not bow down to them or serve them, for I, the Lord your God, am a jealous God." Now, first of all, that's very problematic, right? Because jealousy is not something we consider to be a good thing. Paul writes about jealousy as a sin. Jealousy is sinful. We should not be envious or jealous for anything, Paul writes. So why is it okay for God to sin? Because if jealousy is a sin and God's a jealous God, does that make God a sinful God? Or maybe some things have been lost in translation. So I spent a lot of time this week studying that word jealous. And where did that word jealous in the Hebrew come from? Well, it actually comes from a word that was not used. It was from an unused word, according to my concordance. And the unused word had a few different definitions. Why would you define a word that was never used? I don't understand. And obviously the word was used because it was right here and it was translated as jealous. But it's not jealous as what we think is an envious. Okay, other ways this word gets translated as zealous, passionate. Right? And so when we start thinking about in that terms, it's not I'm jealous because Phil has a nicer car than I do, and so now I have a hostility towards Phil because of this jealousy. I just really want Phil to be my friend. I just really want to have a relationship with Phil, and I don't have the relationship with Phil that I want. That's what that word means, is I'm not getting from Phil what I want from Phil. It's not that he has something I don't have and I'm mad. It's I just want more of Phil. I'm zealous after him. I'm passionate about him. Only this church. And so when we start thinking about God that way, it's he doesn't want. And what is it? Why is he talking about idols? Don't carve these idols. Don't bow down and worship these idols. And why were they making idols? Because they thought that the idols were going to provide for them in the way in which God wasn't. They weren't trusting God to provide for them, so they had to create the idols to provide for them. And so now I have the story about a guy's dad asking his kids if he was a good father. I have the illustrations of my son not trusting me. And then somebody asked me a question this week. I forget exactly how it was phrased, but I'll tell you exactly how I heard it. When are we going to start loving each other more than we love our illusions? When are we going to start loving each other more than we love our illusions? Because we all have all these illusions. And basically our existence is sustained because we all agree to certain illusions. Right now it's 11:35. Because we all agree to the illusion that this part of this day has that title to it. But time doesn't have a number. Time doesn't have a title. What we have done with time is we've made it an illusion. And 11:35 is an illusion that we all agree to. But the reality is that the sun goes up and the sun goes down. I thought that was a Kenny Rogers song, but the Kenny Rogers song was that the ball goes up and the ball goes down and he swings his bat all the way around. And so when I was putting this together, I kept getting confused. I'm like, oh, that's the Kenny Rogers song, but it's not the Kenny Rogers song. But the ball goes up and the ball goes down and he swings his bat all the way around. You ever heard that song? And it's a kid, he's playing baseball and he swings his bat and the ball hits the ground and he gets to the three and he goes, I never realized I was such a good pitcher. It's about the optimism of life. He struck himself out. Man, he wasn't a bad hitter. He was just that good of a pitcher. Anyway, but the sun goes up and the sun goes down. And there's markers that we know that there's a difference in the days. But we all agree that today is Sunday. Nowhere is today actually Sunday, but we agreed to the illusion that there's a name for this day and it's Sunday. We agreed to the illusion that there's a name for this time and it's 11:36 now, right? We all agreed to these illusions. And we all love our time. And we love our time, a lot of times, we love our time more than we love each other. Because we have to leave here. We all love each other, but at noon, we're done. Time's up for loving each other on this day of Sunday. Right? We all agree to the illusion of money. Money's an illusion. Right? And the fact is don't get me started on cryptocurrency. I've tried to make sense of that stuff. That stuff makes no sense. Talk about an illusion. That stuff is totally made up. There's no reality to cryptocurrency. Right? I've had experts in it that dumbed it down, and that can't be real. That can't be real, right? Now a lot of us used to carry cash, and we all agreed to the illusion that some paper is more valuable than this paper. That's just because we agreed to the illusion that paper is more valuable than this paper, but that paper isn't inherently more valuable than this paper. I think it costs more than $1 to make $1, which, once again, every time we make dollars, we lose money, which, once again, doesn't make sense. Right? Oh, is it pennies? Pennies cost more than a penny? Okay. But now it's like, I don't use cash. I use my debit card, which isn't even more of an illusion. Because I use this debit card, and it takes numbers on one computer and puts them as numbers on another computer. Nothing actually changes hands except for numbers in a computer. But we all agree to these illusions. And we love these illusions. We love the illusion of money. We love the illusion of time. We love all, and we can look at, once again, these are just the two of the easiest ones to point out, but there's a lot of illusions in our life. A lot of our relationships are illusions. A lot of our stuff that we all agree to in life is an illusion. When are we going to stop loving our illusions more than we love each other? When are we going to start putting each other ahead of our time? When are we going to start putting each other ahead of our money? That homeless guy that sits outside of Chestnut Commons, I've never given him $1. Mostly because I don't carry cash. Maybe those homeless guys should start getting Venmo or something like that, and it'd be easier for us to give them money. But what does it hurt me to love that guy enough to give him some of my money? But I love my money more than I love that homeless guy. There's children that are sleeping on beds right now because we love our money more than we love them to donate the money that they need to buy a bed. Once again, we're talking about, once again, this is the bad word, socialism, right? We don't want government socialism. That's bad. The only time I ever want government-regulated socialism is when the kingdom of God is here and Jesus is the head of it. Because I think Jesus is the only human being that can run that without getting corrupted. So once Jesus is fully in charge, we can be socialists, right? But until then, no, thank you. Now, I do want my socialists when it comes to public schools and roads and police and fire and military. That's good, fine. Stay out of everything else. But we as individuals should be a little more socialized. We should love people more than we love our time, more than we love our money. Because once again, if I give that homeless guy $5 and he goes and buys beer, oh, who cares? Wouldn't you rather a homeless guy be drunk than sober? Because if I'm homeless, I'd much rather be homeless and drunk than homeless and sober. Because at least my pain is a little bit medicated. At least it's a little bit easier getting through life drunk when I'm homeless. All I do is make that guy's day a little bit better. Now, once again, I prefer him to go to rehab and get treatment and get help for his addiction and turn his life around. But I don't have that kind of time to invest in that guy because my time is more important to me than that guy's well-being, right? Because I love that illusion of time more than I love that guy. I love the illusion of my money more than I love that guy. So when are we going to stop loving our illusions more than we love each other? Because the reality is we have to be in love with these illusions because we're not affirming God as a good father. Matthew, the old Sermon on the Mount. A lot of times the Sermon on the Mount gets me in trouble. Matthew chapter 6, verse 25. It says, therefore I tell you, do not be anxious about your life, what you will eat or what you will drink, nor about your body, what you will put on. Is not life more than food, and the body more than clothing? Look at the birds of the air. They neither sow, nor they weep, nor gather into barns, and yet your heavenly Father feeds them. Are you not more valuable than they are? And which of you, by being anxious, can add a single hour to your lifespan? And why are you anxious about clothing? Consider the lilies of the field, how they grow. They neither toil nor spin, yet I tell you, even Solomon in all his glory was not arrayed like one of these. But if God so clothes the grass of the field, which today is alive and tomorrow is thrown in the oven, will he not much more clothe you, O you of little faith? The illusions we create to protect us. The illusions that we create because we don't trust that God's actually going to provide. Now, once again, it's easy for me to say, well, God's not going to protect my family if somebody breaks in, so I got to have a gun. I got to have a gun in my house to protect my family. Because I don't trust that God's actually going to protect me if somebody breaks in my house. Well, if this person out here was actually trusting that God was going to provide for them, they wouldn't need to be breaking into your house. So once again, it's not an individual thing. It's a humanity thing. You might trust God to provide for all your needs, but there's a lot of people around you who don't. And when we don't trust God to provide for our needs, we're telling him, we don't trust you to be a good father. We don't trust that you're going to protect our families. We don't trust that you're going to provide us food. We don't trust that you're going to give us clothing. So we have to take it into our own hands. We have to do it. We have to protect. We have to provide. We have to toil and reap and sow and whatever those words were. We have to do it because we don't trust God will. I have to protect my money because I don't trust God to keep giving me more. What if I lose my job? I don't trust that God's going to help me get another one. What if somebody breaks into my house? I don't trust that God's going to protect my family from being murdered and then going to heaven and escaping all the chaos that this world is in. Again, weird thinking. I'm going to take a bullet for my wife, so I go to heaven and she has to stay here. Weird way to think. I am so glad for Betty right now. I wish she was here because I loved her. But I'm so glad she's not in this world anymore. Weird way to think. I didn't really get to know Phil all that much. But I'm glad he's out of this world. I don't want to live in this world. Why would I want them to live in this world? Weird way to think. But we got to buy guns to protect our families from getting murdered and going to heaven. Weird way to think. I don't trust God to provide. I don't trust God to protect. I don't affirm God as a good father. Now, I understand that we live in the world in which we live in. And I understand that we live in a world where we have to have guns to protect ourselves because there are people that are going to try to kill us or try to break into our house. I understand that we have corrupt bosses that are going to fire us to try to save money, and so I got to look after myself. So it's not me making the problem, it's all of humanity making the problem. And as a collective group of human beings, we have told God, you are not a good father. Romans chapter 1. Starting in verse 18. For the wrath of God is revealed from heaven against all ungodliness and unrighteousness of men who by their unrighteousness suppress the truth. For what can be known about God is plain to them, because God has shown it to them. For his invisible attributes, namely his eternal power and divine nature, have been clearly perceived ever since the creation of the world, and the things that have been made. So they are without excuse. For although they knew God, they did not honor him as God or give thanks to him, but they became futile in their thinking, and their foolish hearts were darkened. Claiming to be wise, they became fools. They exchanged the glory of the immortal God for images resembling mortal man and birds and animals and creeping things. Therefore, verse 24, therefore God gave them up to the lust. Verse 26, for this reason, God gave them up to dishonorable passions. Verse 28, and since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them up to a debased mind. We are living in the world in which we're living in because we're choosing to live in a world in which we don't trust God. God has made everything known to us. He has shown us his glory. He has shown us his power. He has shown us everything we need to see to say, yes, I can trust you. Even to the point where he let us murder him. There's nothing that has happened in the course of human history that has shown that God has done that has said we shouldn't trust that. And God is saying, but since you want to claim to be wise, since you want to claim to know how to protect yourself, since you want to claim to know how to provide yourself, since you want to claim that these illusions that you have created are true, and the truth that I have created is false, I will let you. I will let you live in that world. I will turn you over. I will turn you over. I will turn you over. I will allow you to live in my wrath. Which is what? God's wrath is revealed by him allowing us to live in a world without him. By allowing us to live in a world where we can't trust him. By allowing us to live in a world where we have to provide all of our stuff. We have to provide our security, we have to provide our safety, we have to provide our food, we have to provide our clothing. Because we don't trust him. I'm not going to force you to trust me. I'm not going to make you trust me. But I'm going to continue to show up time and time and time and time again and show you that you can. I can't make my son trust me. But I can make him not trust me. I can tell him something right now that when he gets older he knows I can't trust my dad. Or I can spend the rest of my life proving to him that he can trust me. That when he turns 21 years old and he's got something he needs to tell me, he knows he can come tell me and I'm not going to shoot him. When he messes up in school, he can come home and tell me and know that I'm going to still love him. I tell my kids all the time, the only thing you'll ever get in trouble for is lying to me. You can do whatever you want to do. You can mess up big time. You can break something. Just come tell me. Don't lie to me. You can trust me. You can trust me. I can't make you. But all I can do is spend my life showing you that you can trust me. All God has ever done is spend our entire lives trying to show us that we can trust him. That this small little church of 30 people has survived everything it's survived. It's still here. When Diane handed me that financial report on Thursday, it's really easy for me not to trust God. God's going to provide and keep this church open because those numbers look really bad. Or I can just say, you know what? God's got a plan. I'm going to trust him. He's going to provide. He's going to show up. Not just sit on my hands and wait for him to show up and do all the work, but know that he's going to provide an opportunity for us, for this church, to continue to move forward. And when those things in our life show up, and we have that chance, we have that choice, am I going to trust that God's going to provide, or am I just going to take things into my own hands? Because I can tell you, every time I've taken things into my own hands, they've never turned out well. I told you the story about Krause. I'll tell you the story one more time. This is a new story. I just remembered this even happened. So some of you might not have been here the Sunday I talked about it. Okay? I woke up one morning in July 2001. I got high. I got in my car, and I started driving around Lorraine. I ended up at the Army recruiting station. Had no idea why I was there. Had never thought about joining the Army. There was no way in hell I would ever join the Army. Sorry, true expression. It wasn't never going to happen. I walked in that office, and the guy said, "Why are you here?" Very, very rudely. "Why are you here?" Because looking at me, there was no way I was there to join the Army. I said, "I think I'm supposed to join the Army." They give me a drug test. I fail it. Tell me some stuff to do. Come back 2 weeks. They come back 2 weeks. They give me a drug test. I pass it. They take me to MEPS. I enlist. I'm on the bus. God shows up. This is where I want you. I go through basic training. Weird things are always happening. I get through basic training. My family all flies to Oklahoma to watch me graduate basic training. The last day of basic training is the last PT test. You got to pass it to graduate. I take the PT test. I fail it. Fail my run by 2 minutes. All my family showed up from Ohio to Oklahoma to watch me graduate. Now I'm not graduating. I go in my wall locker and I start crying and yelling because I'm angry. You wanted me here? You did all this just to embarrass me? This is where you want me? Here as a failure in front of my family? Who my Uncle Dave just slipped in the ice because once again, Oklahoma, the week of my military graduation, Oklahoma gets 13 inches of ice, not snow. Now they don't know how to handle ice in Oklahoma, right? My Uncle Dave, right? He's developmentally disabled, right? Slips on a curb, breaks his ankle. My family's in the house. I get a Red Cross message. Something happened to my Uncle Dave. So now you brought my Uncle Dave here to slip and fall and break his foot, to embarrass me. What kind of God are you? And all of a sudden the drill sergeant walks in. "Thornton, where you at? I'm giving you one more chance. PT test tomorrow, 6 a.m. If you pass it, you can graduate." I failed my run by 2 minutes. You don't make up 2 minutes on a 2-mile run in 12 hours. All of a sudden, this kid named Krause, I don't even know his first name. Never was buddies with him. Didn't hardly talk to him all through basic training. He comes over, sits next to me on my bed. Says, "Hey, I'm going to pace you tomorrow on your run." "What do you mean?" "I'm a runner. Tell me what time you can get. You stick with me, we'll get that time. Because I can run whatever I want to run. I know how to pace." I said, "Why?" He says, "I don't know." He goes, "I'm a Christian. I was over there praying. I felt God telling me I needed to come help you. I needed a 13:36 to pass the run. I got a 13:36. I passed and I graduated. And now I'm going to sit here, and this is what happened to me. I'm sitting in that office a couple months ago, doubting that God's going to show up and save this church. And I'm in my time of meditation. I'm meditating. I'm not praying. I'm still. I'm quiet. And all of a sudden I hear, "You don't remember Krause? How dare you doubt me? I have proven to you time and time and time again I will provide." I look at my life. I look at my wife, my kids, my house, this church. I didn't earn any of this. None of this came out of my own labor. How am I going to stop trusting him now? Look at what we have. Every single one of us, right, was so blessed to have been born into this country. I'm so glad I'm born in this country, not someplace else. Can you imagine being born in 80? And we're going to stop trusting God? Look at what we all have. None of us are rich. None of us live in mansions. But look at what God has provided for us. And we think we're going to be the ones who provide? We think we're going to be the ones that protect our families? This, in Romans 1, this is the world that we're living in. Because it's the world we've chosen to live in. A world without God. He goes on to verse 28. He says, and since they did not see fit to acknowledge God, God gave them over to a debased mind. They were filled with all manner of unrighteousness, evil, covetousness, malice. They were full of envy, murder, strife, deceit, maliceness. They were gossips, slanderers, haters of God, insolent, haughty, boastful, inventors of evil, disobedient to parents, foolish, faithless, heartless, ruthless. This is the world we've chosen. God's not going to punish us because of these things. God's allowing us to live in these things because we've chosen to. And so when are we as a church, not Grace Community Church, the church, the body of Christ, going to start realizing that it's more important for us to love each other than to love our illusions? It's more important for us to give our money away to people who need it. Once again, Paul says, look out for those, to put the interests of others ahead of your own. Do not merely look out for your own interests, meaning you're still supposed to look out for your interests. Don't be stupid. God gives you your money. Don't give it all away. Right? He gave you enough to provide for your needs. And if there's something that overflows out of the cup, give it away. Because there's people who need it. And trust that he's going to provide more. We still live in the world. We still have to balance. Right? Let's not just sell all of our stuff and quit all of our jobs and think God's going to provide. Well, God provided you your home. God provided you your job. Right? Let's not go to the extremes. But let's start putting other people into that illusion, or putting other people into our consideration. And stop living in the illusions that we've all agreed on and start just loving each other. Because that's how we tell God he's a good father. Well, by me affirming God's image in you and me loving you just as much as I love me, is me telling God you're a good father. You did a good job creating Phil. I'm going to love Phil just like you do, because I trust that you made him in your image. And if Phil's homeless and he's on the street, I'm going to provide for him. I'm going to help him. Because I'm the person that God put in his life to provide. To get him up. Not handouts. Handouts don't work. Our government's proven that. Hand-ups do help. We need a lot of people right now that need hand-ups. The whole nation of Haiti needs a hand-up. When are we going to start loving each other more than we love our illusions? When are we going to start telling God he's a good father? Trusting him. Anywho, sorry, I know that was long, but this is what's been on my mind lately. So I can't understand what I ever did to that kid to make him not trust me. And it bothered me. Because I realized it's really important for me as a father to be affirmed that I'm a good father. And if that's true for me, it's got to be true for God too. And in every day of my life, the way I live my life, am I telling God he's a good father? Am I showing him that I trust him? Because he's never done anything to make me doubt him. He's never done anything to make me believe I can't trust him. But a lot of ways in which I live my life, I say I can't trust him. We can trust him. And we can trust him enough to start loving each other more than we love our illusions.